Hello, hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I see a number of staff, obviously on the call here. I do not see any other commissioners. Is that correct, Tanisha?
Yes, that is correct. I am scrolling again with you, but I don't see anyone else just yet.
And I know Commissioner Simmons is unable to join us today due
Yes.
to another obligation he has with school board with MABE. So, but I am expecting others to join. So.
Commissioner Coy, Commissioner Muhammad is here.
Wonderful. Good morning, Commissioner.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, all.
We'll give Commissioner Ames Messenger just a minute longer and then go ahead and get underway. I know there's certainly a lot on the agenda today and some larger items to cover. Tanisha, while we're waiting, do we have any public comment signups for today?
We do not, however, they do have until 10:30, so we're going through the email one more last time just to be sure, verify. Yes, so we are confirmed. There are no public comment for today.
Okay. Well, let's go ahead and get started. And I imagine Commissioner Ames Messenger will join momentarily. But good morning, everyone. This is Committee Chair Andrew Coy. I would like to welcome you all to the September 15th Operations Committee meeting. If you have not done so, please mute your phone. Anyone who does not mute their phone may be muted by the call moderator or removed from the call. Additionally, please turn your video off if you are not a board member or the CEO and her staff. I'll now read a roll call of the board to identify who is present. Please identify yourself first before speaking for the record. Vice Chair Parker, Commissioner Ames Messenger, Commissioner Muhammad.
Muhammad present.
And Commissioner Simmons is excused today for a different obligation. Members of the public who would like to provide comment to the committee can do so by signing up the day of the meeting until the start of the meeting at 10:30 a.m. Up to 5 individuals will be given the opportunity to provide comment. Speakers will be granted 3 minutes. All public comment should address operations-related issues. Any individuals or groups
that ROI.
Let's see. Any interested groups in providing public comment may do so by emailing public.comment@bcps.k12.md.us or calling the board office at 443-642-4095 or visiting the board office at 200 East North Avenue, room 406. Finally, the chat feature during our virtual meetings will not be used as a tool for gathering feedback or answering questions from the public. If you do have questions, though, please email schoolboard@bcps.k12.md.us and we'll provide a response to you. As I referenced earlier, we do have a lot of items and larger items on the agenda, starting today with the Administrative Modernization Project, or AMP. And I see a number of folks from both the finance and human capital and IT teams on the call here, but which one of you all is going to be leading out today?
Good morning, Commissioner Coy. Human Capital is going to be leading the presentation today. I'm not
Wonderful,
sure
Chief
how
Nielsen. Yeah.
it doesn't look like I have sharing functionality any longer. Will someone from
One
the board
second,
team?
Chief, let me move you up so that you can have that ability.
Okay, thank you. So good morning, everyone. My name is Emily Nielsen, Chief Human Capital Officer. I'll be giving the AMP quarterly update with my team members, Kenny Carter, our Director of System Learning and Development, and Sarah Abel, our Director of HC Systems and Strategy. Great, and now I can share. All right, so this is our quarterly update for the Administrative Modernization Project, or AMP. AMP directly addresses the board's priorities to have high quality modernized resources that will provide equal access to all of our students, staff, and community. And as you may remember, AMP is a multi-year initiative that is revitalizing several of our core systems and adding some new and improved systems so that we can leverage technology to improve our district operations and build the foundation for the next generation of work, especially in finance and human capital. AMP has been ongoing since we went live with our new finance modules in summer of 2023. Last year, we launched our performance management system where we do evaluations, a platform called Charm. This summer, we launched our new learning management system, Canvas and KickUp. We'll talk a little bit more about that in this presentation. And we're very focused right now on getting ready to go live in December for human capital management, payroll, UKG Ready, our time and attendance system, the update to P-Star and the budget amendment app, as well as the leadership tracking system for our school leaders. And in the spring, once we have implemented Fusion, HCM, payroll, and UKG Ready, we'll move to Punch to Pay. In UKG Ready, we'll talk a little bit more about what that will look like for our spring quarter later in the presentation today too. So these system implementations in AMP really cover a broad variety of our stakeholders. They cover all of our employees who are now completing annual all staff compliance training in our new learning management system. It also includes our high school students and their families, and will include all of our students over the next 2 years. And then we see some specific systems that special groups of users in the district will be benefiting from. So our P-Star update and our budget amendment update will support our budget owners and their designees. Our payroll team, our benefit team, our compensation team are all going to be using the new modules in HCM. Our timekeepers and approvers in UKG Ready will be using that system to implement payroll starting in December. And we also will have improved functionality with our employee self-service, which will benefit all employees starting in December. So our updates this quarter are focused in 4 areas. We'll share a little bit more about our learning management system go live with some successes and challenges. We'll talk about the ongoing testing that we're completing to make sure that Oracle Fusion and UKG are ready to go live in December. Then we'll talk about what it will look like post go live, and a reminder again about how we're phasing in Punch to Pay over the spring. And finally, how we're supporting all of our users through this with our training plan and change management initiatives. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Kenny to talk a little bit more about the learning management system successes and challenges.
Good morning. The merger of Canvas and KickUp is unique to Baltimore City Public Schools. They have not done this before, and there were several things that KickUp brought to the equation that we felt like was going to be super helpful for us. So we've been the beneficiaries of a opportunity to have a single source for professional learning and for classroom content, and it's been going really well so far. The increase in engagement has been very easy to see because of we have auto enrollment that has been wonderful for example, mandatory compliance training that we rolled out this year in the system for the first time, and then we will. And as the future goes along, we're going to have the opportunity for choice registration for folks to be able to go in and find training that they feel would be beneficial for them and help them enhance their capacity to do the work and make our students better. We have a more robust ability to track also and escalate when we need people to make sure that they're completing the training that has been deemed as mandatory. The main reason we went with KickUp to merge with Canvas is because of using KickUp coaching and KickUp walks, which is a part of the registration piece of KickUp and Canvas. And as of the start of the academic calendar year, this year, we've had 310 mentors that have been granted access that can help our teachers do a better job and increase their capacity. Next slide, please. An example of what the dashboards, and there's another part that's also a dashboard, is called Tracks, that can be used in KickUp to see what the completion status is for compliance training or just for simple registration as folks are in systemic PD. You can see on the left side of this slide, just in 821, when we had systemic PD, the attendance, it can track that, and principals, ILEDs can go in and actually just look and see what the attendance is and what the courses that have been taken by individuals within their school, or in central office also if folks register for anything that may be going on during systemic PD, or just in general from out of when you had your middle of the year or start of the year conferences with folks and it was part of their IDPs. Compliance training, as of 9:30 this morning, we've had 1,202 people that have done all 6 modules in the compliance training. And you can see as it's broken down, all 6 different modules, what the confirmed means completed, what those numbers are also. Next slide. Now, anytime you take 2 systems that have never worked together, there are going to be some growing pains. And the good thing for us is that, and for them, is that they have been great partners and we are working our way through the challenges that we've had. They're not insurmountable. And when it's all said and done, the feedback that we're giving to each other is going to make both of our situations better. For example, refining the workflows and making sure that the data flows freely back and forth has been one thing that we've been working our way through. We learned that the course completion, everybody, once you complete a course, you would love for it to be, you would know in real time what it is, but right now it's 24 hours before they get that, but we're working our way through that. And then we're just encouraging all of our folks in the district that if you could just give us feedback, the more feedback we get, the better off we're going to be. Right now it's at 44%. Industry-wide, you like for it to be at 70% or better. We'll get there and we'll continue to make the system better. Chief Nielsen? Oh, I'll pass it to my colleague, Sarah Abel.
Thank you so much, Kenny. So I'll share a bit about our go live implementation planning. So as you see on the screen, these are all of the various steps of testing we've been taking to drive towards our go live. And so we've had cycles of testing throughout the spring and the summer, and now we're really honing in on all of those final I's that we need to dot, T's we need to cross. If you can advance to the next slide. We have 3 major cycles of testing that have now been completed. We like to think about this as a puzzle. So we have to do individual module testing to make sure each piece of the system is functioning and configured according to our requirements and our specifications. Once we close that out, then we can move to the next slide, which are end-to-end tests. So each piece has been verified and validated. The pieces work. That we're putting this all together in our puzzle. We have cycles of payroll testing. And so we're comparing what our test system does, what it should be in real life production, and making sure all of the dollar values match and that paychecks are correct. And actually starting this morning, we are doing end-to-end testing. So we are testing the entire cycle of everything that would impact an employee. So this morning, we're actually creating new positions. We're going to be placing employees into those positions, working through the entire human capital side of the process, having them punch on the UKG time and attendance side, and generating paychecks. And so that is the cycle we have to go through. And so we'll be doing that testing through the end of September and verifying that, yes, our systems work, our integrations work, and we're ready for go live. So that brings us to kind of the operational side of closing down a system and opening up a new system. And so we had this first go round last year. So we did a cutover plan last fall to get ready for our go live. And so the district has already been through many of these steps before, and we are following the exact same practice this year. So in order for us to move to Fusion, we actually have to shut down EBS and stop having movement. So what this means is all of our employees who are benefit eligible, they will go through, they will elect an open enrollment. That's our first big task. People have to tell us what their elections are for next year. Our first big deadline is going to be Halloween. So by the 31st, Human Capital has to receive completed hiring packets. That means hiring managers and candidates do everything they need to do to say, yes, I'm going to come work at city schools. If they hit the deadline of 10/31, they can start on the 17th, so November 17th or December 1st. And so we'll work to make sure that they're in our system. Then we will move all of our data over to the new system, turn it on December 13th, which is a Saturday. And then hiring will resume on the other side in Fusion. And so one big difference from last year's cutover plan is that the window, the start date freeze, is actually shorter this time. We are not punching for pay at go live, so we can accommodate earlier start dates. And so you'll also note that our cutover goes over Thanksgiving and our winter holidays. And so depending on where the position is, if it's school-based or central office, the start dates will be dictated by where that person would be working. But we're committed to ensuring that we can get people in, get them processed, and have them starting in their new positions. And so that is really the big difference in this year's cutover. I think with that, I turn it over. Yes.
Thank you, Sarah. So Sarah just outlined all of the robust testing that we're doing to make sure that the system works when we bring it live in mid-December. A little bit about what post go live is going to look like. So when it goes live in December, we're going to be working very carefully to make sure that the new system cuts accurate pay, and we'll make sure that the system has stabilized. Everyone will see that they're getting accurate paychecks, build trust in the new system. At that time of go live, timekeepers and approvers will be the only ones using UKG Ready for submission of payroll. And then once we have that knowledge that the system's working seamlessly, that there's confidence in the accuracy of pay, we'll start with bringing live groups to punch to pay to use the system to submit their time. And this was what we had shared previously, but just to make sure that everyone remembers these key dates that we'll continue to emphasize in our training and communications. But once we've had 2 pay cycles in the new system, then in February, we'll bring on board our managers who are in CUB, Pizzazza, unaffiliated, as well as all of our school police and FOP. They'll be in group 1, punching to pay starting in February. And then we'll have several pay cycles to make sure that they've got the system down and are running smoothly. We'll have spring break. And then after spring break in April, we'll bring on board the rest of staff, our BTU members, PSRPs, L44. And this means that everyone will be punching to pay and fully utilizing our new time and attendance system before the end of the school year, before the start of summer school. So with that, I'm going to pass it back to Kenny to talk a little bit more about how we're going to train everyone to be ready and how we're communicating and managing these variety of changes.
Thank you, Chief Nielsen. The roadmaps that you see here give you from July until April, so you can track what's going on with change management. Now, one of the biggest things to make sure that folks can have the resources can't just be something that's digital or something that is just word of mouth. Change champions have been identified, and we have one in every school. We have one in every office and central office. And so it has been productive and helpful, and they will be able to spread the message and to also continue to answer questions for end users that may come up that they need more than just what they're going to receive from training. Early learning is something that we are doing new this time around because we felt like giving bite-sized bits of information can ease the tension as you get into the actual training phase. And so we've already started rolling that out in Inside Scoop throughout the district. And we hope that folks will continue to utilize that. The training execution and the timeline, you can see here when things are going to be rolled out, and it will coincide with, as Chief Nielsen talked about earlier, when we go from transition from punch to pay before and after spring break. Next slide, please. Training delivery. There's specific ways that you need to make sure that people are able to get the information that you want. And we know that the training approach is going to vary depending on the complexity. So this gives you a clear view and a snapshot. We know that the timekeepers and approvers, they're going to need more in-person training. Those training dates have been scheduled. They're going to have in-person. They're going to be active hours, office hours for them to be able to come in and ask questions. But for them to be successful, we knew that it needed to be more interactive. Then we talked about P-STAR. P-STAR, it's not as, the level of difficulty is not as much. So they will still have instructor-led training, but they will also have office hours to help them be able to understand what's going on and how to navigate through those systems. And then most importantly, everybody will be in employee self-service. And we feel like that training approach is going to be more of a self-paced learning, but we are going to communicate frequently with all end users in every system that we have. It's super important that you have buy-in and that you spend the time yourself to learn how to navigate the system. And what's going to be new this time around is that we're going to have a part of the system called OGL, which is embedded in the system. So if you are in employee self-service and you get stuck and you're not sure exactly what it is that's going on, OGL gives you you just hover on a module, and it will, not a module, you hover on an icon that will help you go to the next step if you need assistance and you don't have to leave the actual system to go to an external resource to figure out what it is you need to do for your next step. Next slide, please. Change impact. The communication for all of our change champions, they have the ability to post things in their schools. And we also will have things in central office. And then we have AMP Academy 3.0 that we've updated. And we're going to use the LMS and the way that the LMS enhances communication and contact with folks. They have what we call a change community, which will help us not change community, I'm sorry, a community learning community as a part of Canvas that they can go in, folks can go in, and you could be working on something in your classroom as a teacher, working to enhance some training or a lesson that you're doing. And then you realize you have an AMP training that you have to do. Well, you can stay right in that system and not have to go anyplace else or an external resource and be able to get to what you need to continue to do your work. Next slide, please. Change champions, we give them resources. They have their own toolkit that is a part of AMP Academy 3.0, and the principals also have access to that toolkit, and it will house all the information that they need as we continue to work our way towards go live. Next slide, please. Readiness reels are a part of, as we talked about earlier, they're an Inside Scoop. It is a bite-sized video that gives you a lot of information about how to navigate the new systems. And more importantly, there are also going to be snapshots, which will be like one-pagers that you can print out and actually keep by your desk if you want, as another resource, as you know that you're going to prepare for your next day, or you're going to be in a new system that's coming up and not have to stress about, knowing how to actually work your way through learning that system. Next slide, please. And then, as we talked about in App Academy 3.0, we are, I apologize, this should have updated this slide. It's not 108 days, it's actually about 87 days until go live. Next slide. And then on our website takes you to AMP Academy 3.0. It takes you to all the things that we talked about previously. You can go on to City Schools website, go to the favorites, and click on AMP Academy 3.0, and it will give you all the resources that have been discussed. Next slide, please. Now, support is always super important. We're in the system, everything is going good, but all of a sudden you have a question. Well, there's a lot of different ways you're going to get communications on where the sources are going to live. A lot of them are going to be single source. You don't have to go a bunch of different places, which is going to be much better experience for the end user. Self-service is number one. We want you to actually fish. Go fish. The more you fish and do things for yourself, the easier, the better you're going to learn how to use the system. And then have an elbow partner also. The more we can do together, the better off we're going to be. Then online resources are all over the place. AMP 3.0, the communities that will be housed in Canvas and KickUp. And then also, again, your change champions. Your change champions will be there as a resource for you to use at any time. Then we're going to have office hours that are going to be scheduled, going to be communicated. We encourage folks to go to office hours because you're going to have virtual instructor-led trainers that are going to be there to help you with any questions you may have, and subject matter experts from the different areas. And then, of course, the support centers are always going to be there. Our partners at OIT will be able to provide services at the call-in and support center. And then we also have our heat system. Chief Nielsen.
Thanks, Kenny. And finally, we've heard from several members of our board on our operations committee that they want to be able to engage with the system. And so we're preparing to schedule that for November with a learning lab experience that you'll be able to come in and use our new Oracle Fusion functionality before it goes live in December. So we look forward to seeing many of our board commissioners there. And that concludes our presentation today. So we'll open the floor up for any questions you have or any feedback.
Wonderful, thank you. And I see Commissioner Ains Messenger has joined. Any questions from Commissioners Mohammed, Commissioner Ains Messenger?
Thank you for the opportunity. I want to just start off by saying that I appreciate the growth that we've seen from our report last year, with everything being in early development and early training plans to now us being moving towards a go live date and being able to have concrete outputs around potential tracking effectiveness. So glad to see that. In just a concern lies in the processing time, being able to hear something around the processing time around course updates, and how that could potentially lead to some frustration. And then the survey results. When we look at the survey results, it seems to be lower than the desired amount that we wanted to reach for, and wanted to hear why potentially we aren't seeing the amount of individuals participating in the survey as we would like to see? And does that exist in a particular group? Are we seeing more engagement in a particular group of schools or CLNs more than others? So if you can give some insight around that, that would be helpful.
I'll take that one, Chief Nelson. When we were working to put this presentation together, and I looked at all the data, and our colleagues in academics would be able to speak to it in more granular detail. But as a whole, because it's new and we just started using KickUp for registration at the end of the academic calendar year last year, rolling it out to them and having them learn the importance of registering. I think it was a little bit more of a stressor to make sure that they were registered for classes the right way and not realizing how impactful it would be to complete the surveys. So we have active campaigns to remind folks, and then the instructors, when they get towards the end of the presentations that they have that folks are registering for in KickUp, as far as the systemic PD, they're making more of an emphasis on please fill out the survey. And I think we're going to see in quick time that those numbers are going to go up. So it's a easy fix, and we feel like we're going to be able to get more positive impact and results in quick time.
Appreciate that. I'll add another question into this with regards to the total completion of the required courses. Are we seeing an uptick as we move along with individuals as they become more comfortable with using the platform, that they are completing all required rather than just engaging with the initial courses?
I think it's there's two ways to answer that. One is that every place that I've ever been, when you have compliance training that's issued, people wait till the last minute to do it. So that's one thing. And so, but every day, I look at it at the start of the day, I look at it at the end of the day, and the numbers continue to click up. I mean, it's been impressive to watch how that's going on. Now, I'll give you an example as far as operations. Operations has specific days because of the different ways that folks work in there, not always in front of a computer, and they have a big group of folks that need to have time really laid out for them, and they've done that. So we know our operations folks, they have two different days, two different blocks of days that they're going to have folks come in. They're going to do their compliance training. It's all planned out. It's all set. They even have a makeup date to make sure that they're good to go. So the numbers are going to click up very fast as far as that is concerned. But I would say that it's been impressive watching the numbers grow daily. And we have campaigns as far as reminders to folks that, hey, this is when your deadline is. And we were very intentional. We made sure we gave more time. We gave a bigger block of time because it is the start of the school year and there are a lot of things going on and people have multiple things that they have to do at the same time. Compliance training is always not going to be front of mind. So we gave a bigger window of opportunity for folks to be able to get their compliance training done. So we feel like we have a good plan to make sure with reminders that folks, when we get to our deadline of 10/15, that they are ready and have things completed.
Thank you so much. And just conscious of time, knowing how many things are on the agenda today, Commissioner Ames-Messenger, any question that you have as well here?
It's actually just a compliment. I got to be part of a learning walk using KickUp, and just being able to watch the ILEDs and SSLs like walk through the process is really exciting to see how that interacts with curriculum. I think just as a flag, I am going to encourage other board members to do the same. If there are ways to kind of look at what the data is coming out the other side in terms of dashboard, I think it will be helpful for board members to ask better questions globally if we know the types of data that are being things. So if we'd have mock-ups of some of those of what the interface looks like, just to kind of help us be able to navigate that space would be really helpful. But it was exciting to watch staff use the tool, and just the types of questions it produced at a staff level was very exciting to see.
Yeah, I have one comment as well to add, less of a question, except for to say that something felt either glossed over if there was more detail in there, and I understand there's so many details here to cover, but something that is on my mind and that I would like to really see this rollout address. There's been a lot of comments that have come before the board during my tenure, around licensure and some of the self-service aspects of, particularly for teachers, and some of the incorrect data or the lag in updating that data. I would certainly like to see, as this is rolling out this fall, the ways in which we believe this system is going to address those concerns. I know you all have heard them. I know you all have been in lots of listening sessions and spending time with different either union representatives or directly with teachers. So I know there are things that are on your mind, and I see it was referenced in there, but it will be a question that I will certainly come back to time and time again as we are going through this process to see how this system is improving the experience there. So not a question right now to sort of speak to, but just underscoring the importance of that from my perspective. Okay, well, thank you all for the work that you are doing on this. It is certainly a lot. And knowing that we have a number of other items, I will let you all continue on with the work, and we'll move on to the capital improvement program, the comprehensive maintenance plan. And I know that it has relationship generally, but anticipating these two different presentations on these items. And also just want to say thank you to this team, as I know that you all are under some tight turnaround and deadlines that are due things to the state at the end or beginning of next month, the end of this month, beginning of next month. And so appreciate you all presenting here today and knowing that this is then going to the full board. So who is going to be leading out of this presentation?
Good morning, board members. My name is Scott Washington. I'm the Executive Director of School Facilities. And are we doing the CMP first, sir?
I think
yeah. Or that's on the agenda, I guess, but who is just chiming in?
I'm Maureen
Yes.
Gershberg. We talked internally in ops. Would it be okay if CIP went first? It helps lay some of the groundwork.
Yeah, no, please feel free to switch that order.
Thank you.
All right. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. All right, are folks able to see it?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. All right. Good morning. My name is Maureen Gershberg. I'm the Director of Facilities Planning and Strategy within the Operations Department. And today we'll be going over the FY27 Capital Improvement Program and major capital projects. This aligns with Board Priority 3. Every year, the IAC, the Interagency Committee on School Construction, requires that we submit 3 documents: the Comprehensive Educational Facilities Master Plan, CEFMP, the Capital Improvement Program, CIP, and Comprehensive Maintenance Plan. It can be a little hard to keep track of them sometimes because they sound very similar, but this slide just gives a very brief overview of the differences between them. But the big takeaway is that they are companion documents that align to support short and long-term educational facilities plans, both from a capital investment perspective as well as maintenance. These are the topics that we'll be covering today. One of the ways this presentation differs from past CIP presentations is that we'll be placing a greater emphasis on the CIP funding requests for Baltimore City, in addition to those from the state. The current maintenance and capital budget is approximately $407 million, less than what is needed. This means we're constantly having to make difficult decisions on what we can do and what we must postpone from a facility perspective. Unfortunately, the money that we have received previously is going to be slated to decrease because of changes in the Healthy Schools Facility Funds going forward. Capital decisions are informed by both physical system conditions as well as district priorities. The majority of city schools' capital funds comes from the state, and that's between the state CIP and HSFF, the Healthy Schools Funds that I previously mentioned. One-time funding sources are vital, but they're one of the reasons why we've been able to bring so many new and renovated facilities online in the past 10 years, specifically with the 21st Century Schools funding. But to do long-term planning for the whole district, we look towards recurring maintenance and capital funds. I also want to highlight the increased amount that we are going to be seeing from the city, which is slated to go up even more in the out years. Unfortunately, our Healthy Schools funding is going to be decreasing most likely. FY26 is going to be the last year that Healthy Schools Facilities Fund exists. It's going to be expiring. The intention from the state is that it's going to be replaced by the Nancy Kopp Facility Priority Fund. So Healthy Schools was funded at $90 million and City Schools was guaranteed half of that. So it was $45 million each year. The Nancy Kopp Fund that's replacing it, it's only going to be $70 million and we're not going to be guaranteed a certain percentage. The state is still determining exactly how those funds will be allocated, but we are pretty confident it's not going to be $45 million each year for city schools. These are the one-time funding sources I mentioned previously associated with active projects. So it doesn't include the full list of completed 21st Century Schools program buildings. Next, we'll cover facility needs and demographics. This draws upon the analysis shared within our CEFMP back in July and lays the framework for some of the CIP funding requests that you're going to see. The past 30 years have seen significant shifts in demographic patterns in Baltimore. As a result, excess seats are not located where there's increased demand. Specific examples of these changes tie into two of our CIP requests for this year, one of which is brand new. Overcrowding continues in far southeast, even with the additional seats that have come online at Graceland, Ruba, and Holabird. A new CIP request is for multiple systemic projects at the southeast building, which was voted upon back in January of 25 to be retained by the district instead of surplus because we knew we needed these additional seats. South Baltimore is another area with increasing enrollment. There are two projects coming online at Marie G. Faring to assist with this, and those have been years in the works. But Lakeland, just northwest of that, has been overutilized for about 8 years now. And while we do have many schools that are overutilized, it's very different at a school with over 1,000 kids versus a school that's overcrowded at a 300-kid capacity. Last year, the project wasn't fully approved by the state due to available funding, but we've reprioritized this project and anticipate it will be approved this year. I'll now go into details of the CIP requests. To determine our CIP list, we carry over unfunded projects from the prior year. We see if any might be covered by Healthy Schools. Again, we're in our last year of being able to request those. We'll add new projects if needed, and then we'll review for alignment with the annual review, approvals, and district priorities. The biggest changes you'll see between this year's CIP and last year is that Marie G. Faring, Furley, and Armistead Gardens have now been fully funded. We've also added the Southeast systemic projects that I mentioned, and we've adjusted the Ben Franklin and Edmondson schedules. These are the numbers and the corresponding map that shows the state and city requests. I'll go into detail at the end of the presentation about the amount of monies coming from we're requesting from the state and those from the city. And so you'll see some projects are drawing from both pots. And so this number represents those as a single project, not as two different requests. These are requests for the Healthy Schools projects that we'll be submitting as well. All right, and now we'll go through the major projects. I know people get pretty excited about this part. There'll be projects that are currently funded, as well as ones that we're requesting funding for. So we have Furley that just opened up this August. We have Marie G. Faring that they had their early learning annex open in time for school this year. And that also will be supported by a new 2-story prefab coming online at approximately January 26. And both of those projects, Furley and Marie G. Faring, were associated with overcrowding. Northeast Middle building, which is being renovated for Vanguard Middle, is under construction and was slated to open August 26th. That has shifted to August 27 just due to construction timelines and availability of equipment. That they are swinging at the Thurgood Marshall building currently. Lakeland is the 2-story prefab that I mentioned. We requested last year and they didn't approve, so we're requesting it again this year, but we anticipate it will be approved. You can see here in the upper left-hand corner, that large structure is a 1-story prefab that dates to the 60s. So we would be building a new 2-story prefab to the right of it, where that playground currently is. We would take down the old prefab and then put a new playground there. That way there'd be no swinging involved at all. Frederick Douglass is going to be a co-location with Briscoe and is slated to open August 26th. Commodore John Rogers is a replacement, and that's slated to come online January 27. Frederick Douglass and Commodore are the last 2 21st century funded projects. Armistead Gardens is slated to come online August 27, and that'll help alleviate overcrowding. Baltimore City College just swung into UB this past fall. That'll be under construction for 3 years. That's Built to Learn. City Springs is currently in design. And so that'll be a brand new building located in the block directly across the street from their current location. Western and Poly are both in design right now. Western is slated to swing out of their current location to the Northwestern building next summer when Frederick Douglass moves out. They'll be there for 2 years, and then they'll come back summer of 28. At that point, Poly will then move out to the Northwestern building. They will be there for 2 years, and then the project will be complete August 2030. The Southeast building is a new CIP request that I mentioned. We're going to be requesting funds from both the state and the city on that. And that is several large systemic projects. And that would be, the projects themselves would be, if everything gets funded, would be slated to be completed August 31. But the possibility of students moving in would be summer 27 after Commodore John Rogers moves out. And so the projects that occur, that the systemic projects, would be like any other systemic project that are just occurring when the students are on site. We've adjusted the timelines for Ben Franklin and Edmondson. Those would be pushed out, and so the modular at Ben Franklin would come on, the prefab would come online August 2030, and then the additional renovations would come online August 33. Edmondson, the CTE consolidation is underway now, and so the program would be able to consolidate from the 2 buildings to the 1 building August 28, because we're building out the CTE spaces that support that program in the main Edmondson building. And at that point, there will no longer be 2 buildings for Edmondson. It'll just be the 1. And then if all the funding comes through, the renovations that we've intended for Edmondson would be finished 2033. And we do get a lot of questions about the West Side Skills Center. Just as a reminder, that's part of the non-academic consolidation plan. And so that would be transferring over to an administrative use fully once the Edmondson students are no longer in there, summer 28. So looking forward, here are the state CIP funding requests. The blue indicates those with prior funding, and then the yellow are those that have not received any funding yet. We historically, in the past several years, have received about $25 million from the state. So while we don't know the exact amount that we will be getting from them, we're using this number as a something to kind of aim towards, even though our actual requests, when you include all the systemic projects, as you can see from the 58.3 million there, is far exceeds than what we're going to be getting from them. These are our city CIP requests. You can see here that the city is going to be has voted and approved upon 27.5 million for city schools this year, and they're slated to go up to 40 million by FY30, which is really exciting, and we really appreciate that. And so these are the major projects and systemic projects that we would be and how we'd be allocating that funding. So we are seeking board approval to put forward these CIP requests both to the state and the city. It would be $83 million that we're requesting from the state. We know realistically we'll probably only get about 25, but the need exceeds what was available. And then the 27.5 from the city is what was voter approved. And then additionally, there's still 14.3 million that the city needs to provide for the Build to Learn match. And as always, if you want to know more about our work, buildings, our analysis associated with the CEF&P, you should check out our dashboard.
Thank you for that. And obviously knowing that there's a second presentation, I guess, are there questions specific to this? And if some of the answers are better answered in the second presentation, happy to have that be a response for us to then wait more. But Commissioner Amy Messenger, I see you came off on camera. No question. Commissioner Mohammed, any question?
Yeah.
None here.
Okay, so we're happy to hear the second presentation. I guess one just clarifying, there was a comment that you made at the end there about the Build to Learn match from the city. Could you say a little bit more about either what we are expecting from them, what's required from them, like just a little bit more about what you were referencing there?
Yes. So as part of the Build to Learn legislation, there was the amount that we received from the state, but there's a certain percentage from each local jurisdiction on what they were expected to kick in to be able to get those funds. And so it's about 14 million. What was it? 14.3 million. That's 4% of the amount that the total amount that went to us from the state. So we got 357 million. And so that's the 4%. It's part of a larger cost share ratio that applied to how our projects were funded from the state at that point in time. And so the city's aware of this, like they know about it. It's just kind of just a reminder, this is still due.
Okay, and so I guess that's my question a little bit in terms of the city leadership anticipating building this in. Takes time for that all to happen, but are there any concerns about the sourcing of those funds, the matching dollars coming through, anything that's helpful for the board to be aware of in our conversations with city officials?
Lynette, did you want to speak to that, or do you want me to?
You can speak to it, Maureen.
Okay. We're not too concerned about that just yet, just given that these are Built to Learn. There's a lot of funding for major projects happens over a longer span of time than, say, something that happens quick and fast, because it takes multiple years to design and then to build. And so the majority of that is coming from the state. It will need to be paid out at some point in time, but I wouldn't say it's on our highest priority in terms of monies that the city owes.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, happy to move on to the next presentation, and Mr. Washington.
Okay, good morning once again. And again, my name is Scott Washington. I'm the Executive Director of Facilities, and we will now be presenting the FY26 Comprehensive Maintenance Plan. Next slide. Yes, I'm good. Okay. Wait a minute. You advance it? All right. Okay, thank you. All right, sorry for that. Our CMP aligns with board priorities 2, 3, and 5. Next slide. The general outline of our CMP presentation is walking through our entire structure, from our purpose to our investment in our students. Just to note, the purpose of the CMP is to provide a strategic overview of our maintenance program. It's also a requirement of the IAC, and also contains to highlight our continuing improvements and new initiatives in discussion. In trying to maximize our facilities, we begin by trying to be most effective and efficient as we can within our limited resources. We set general building principles and strategic focus areas that we focus on. And I want to kind of note here that those go from basically improving our investments, data-based decisions, and service quality and efficiency. As a part of our CMP, we work and look at our people, performance, and our projects. In terms of our people, we look at the best way to organize and implement our teams. In terms of performance, we look at make sure that we protect our capital investments. And in terms of our projects, we look at data-centered approaches to maximize our project prioritization, including such things as age of building, systemic condition, time since last renovation, and funding eligibility. With many things outside of our control, it's important for us to focus on what's in our control. And the first item with that is our staff. So here's where we invest in our people to maximize their effectiveness. This assists us in cost containment, service efficiency, and other ways as we rely more on our people in-house and less on contractors. Second is our inventory. Asset tagging allows us to be able to track our assets better, helping to streamline our work order process and also manage our equipment life cycles. Third, again, with protecting our capital investment is what we call Building X, which assists us in early detection issues and giving us a better opportunity to mitigate situations before they become emergencies. An example of this is our building automation system, which we use in many cases to track our temperature controls with our air conditioning as well as our heating. That's just one example. In the slide we have up here, we look at tracking, and in our terms of our tracking, we do look at APPA standards. But in addition to looking at those standards, we also look at our MEA assessments that are conducted by the state on all of our facilities in a cycle. This is an area where we've been very successful. We would like to note here that our average ranking is 5% above the state average. We rank 9 out of 24 LEAs. And we have more additional context for that is to understand that we are also fourth in most maintenance square footage, and also fourth oldest infrastructure in the state. So when you put those items into context, the fact that our rankings are still high and above the state average is something to celebrate. Here's our organizational structure in the Office of Operations, or the Division of Operations, I should say, under Dr. Washington. As you can see, we have 3 divisions under her, or 3 also under her, with our operations, facilities, and our capital projects. And then going specifically to facilities itself, our goal in facilities is to provide safe, comfortable, and healthy spaces and facilities in which our staff can teach and our students can learn. And the team I have assembled here are who help us to work on those goals every single day. With our Chris Roberts, our Director of Building Maintenance, Jonathan Collins, our Director of Mechanical Services, Mr. Rolandale, our Director of Logistics and Environmental Compliance. We work as a team to make sure we reach that goal every day. Here is a further breakdown of our operations, showing that 90% of our work is provided by contracted services and in-house staff. What I would like to note here as well is the fact that 145 facilities we maintain, of that, 137 are actual school buildings. And why that's important is because, as you know, in many of our buildings, or some of our buildings, I should say, we do have multiple programs. So 137 are actual school buildings and 8 are actually non-academic spaces. In addition, next slide, we would like to note that even though we have gone up slightly higher in our contracted services in 2023, we are down significantly from what we were in 2024. We're down significantly with what we were in 2023. And the key to understand this piece here is the fact that while we maintain our in-house efforts, our cost increases are majorly or mainly due to increases in costs that affect that percentage, meaning because costs have come up, those percentages are a little bit higher. This slide here shows the investment that the board has made and the system has made in our facilities maintenance and operation. These slides show that over the last 10 years, the investment that has been done, and in the last 2 years, the fact that we've actually been able to reach our goal in investment in operations. Now, the obstacles and the missing resources. This shows the challenges we face in FMO. As you can see, our actuals are only 50 million in our maintenance budget, 90 million in our capital budget, which is 140 million combined. That is much lower than the 547 million total combined that is recommended. So in order to maintain our facilities, we have to really be very strategic in how we attack or prioritize our buildings. And we do that basically using the fact that life safety comes first, operational instruction comes second, and cosmetic comes third. This slide here is a reflection of the maintenance activities that require the most effort. While HVAC is the main driver, this is mainly consistent across the industry as a whole and all LEAs. Please note that this chart also shows a reflection of quantity, not quality of work. At the same time, as you can see, our 23% and our 77% represents our completed work orders by, so let me just real quick. Our 23% and our 77% shows our contracted work orders completed by contractor and our in-house staff. We did have a little bit of a dip in our preventive maintenance this year and a bit of an increase in our reactive maintenance this year. But again, that was mainly due more to cost than actual quality of work itself. But what I would like to note here is that 39% is consistent with other peer groups that we see across not just the state, but also across the nation. That's why 33% lies as shown on the graph right there. Within our limited resources, our key to capital investment protection is our preventive maintenance. So with that being clear, we have 3 levels of preventive maintenance. Number one, or I'll say 3 levels of maintenance. Number one is service, which is our repair work. Number 2 is preventative maintenance. And number 3 has already been seen in our last presentation is capital renewal. So what we look at here is the fact that we've had 11% decrease in our PM work order outcome, but you see the consistent effort of going from the old model of reactive maintenance to the newer model of proactive maintenance. Our 83% completion of work orders in under 30 days is in line with peer users once again. And the next slide or next item right there shows the fact that in many of our buildings, we still maintain a number of systems beyond their useful life. And I think that's important to note because even though we've done a lot of capital investment, we have a lot of new schools, we still have a number of schools that are traditional schools that have long-standing systems and long-standing infrastructure. The fact that our boilers and chillers, these numbers are actually numbers that we've actually been able to get down. They were much higher at one time, but showing the fact that our boilers and chillers that we maintain to keep our buildings cool and warm, keep our buildings open, as well as our roofs to protect our envelope and elevators or ADA are main items that are major issues. And the fact that we're able to maintain these even with some of the gaps that we have, just shows a commitment to our being able to keep schools open and occupied on a regular basis without interruptions in instruction. And lastly, as was stated in the last presentation, is the fact that the CMP and the CFMP inform our CIP projects. Next slide. Lastly, or moving on, is our investment not just in staff, but also in our students. As a school system, our goal is not just college, but career readiness as well. With that being the case, we are focused on career planning with our kids, showing that there are other options after graduation besides college, as some kids will not go to school. This is important to understanding number one, in the industry that we had the decline in workforce over the last 20 to 30 years. Number two, there has been an aging out of labor in the trades. And number three, the fact that there is a career that can be made very successful in trades for some of our students who may not be college bound. Next slide. Once again, here, this shows our investment in our students again, showing how all the various areas we've had apprentices and internships and our partnership with academics and our CTE programs as well. Finally, 37 interns and apprentices not complete the program. 12 CTE students are continuing in our apprenticeship program through this year. We've had 1 continue through the internship and 11 permanent hires that now are part of the system as a whole. I tried to expedite that because of time, but that is our CMP presentation. And if there's any question at this time, I'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you for that presentation. Questions from my fellow commissioners? Okay, hearing no questions. One of the things that I would like to just underscore, and you referenced this in your presentation, but feel free to expand a little bit more. When you talk about the recommended maintenance, I also just want to underscore that that's the minimum recommended maintenance, right? That like as you're comparing about like what is the standard of care for buildings and investing in that to ensure that you don't then have the reactive response. I don't know if you just want to speak a little bit more to where that number comes from and why that gap matters to highlight, because certainly having underfunded facilities for decades and decades, it just leads to things that interrupt learning for our students.
And I think Commissioner Coy, you've explained it pretty well yourself. I think for the most part, you're correct. The Association of Physical Plant Administrators, the APPA, those standards are basically our minimum standards that we have in order to maintain our facilities. I think the key or twofold I would answer that question is number one is the fact that despite the funding gap that you saw clearly between that 547 and that 140, is the fact that our assessments by the state on a yearly basis have continued to show that we are still scoring very well or adequate and above the state average in how we maintain our facilities, which is a testament to the team. But I do raise a concern because at the same time, as you say, that is a tremendous gap over and over each year. And with the amount of buildings we have and some of the older infrastructure we have, again, we have the fourth oldest infrastructure in the state and the fourth largest square footage we maintain in the state, that if I'll just say that it's concerning because you don't want to have a catastrophic failure that you may not be able to address at a particular time because you don't have the funding. And I think that's the key. That's why the technology that the board has invested in over the last couple of years has been critical. With our CMMS system, we are actually able to basically prioritize our work orders and know what is critical and what's not, so that as we may not have as much funding, we're still able to meet the challenges of the more critical areas. And also that BS system I reference as well, because many times, especially Commissioner Coy, you can imagine during the wintertime, that's how we are able to track our buildings. I think this question came up in a recent board meeting. We're able to track our buildings early in the morning, throughout the course of the day. That way we can mitigate issues to hopefully be able to address them, to not have interruptions in learning and things like that more than we do. I guess I'm proud of the efforts on that because, again, with 145 buildings, if we did not have the certain infrastructure that the board is invested in, we could have more closures or more situations because of the age of some of our schools. But because we're able to invest and the team has been able to be strategic in how they attack those items, we're able to address those issues early enough to hopefully be able to mitigate and minimize that disruption as much as possible.
No, that's wonderful. And I do also recall coming before the board a year or two ago now at this point, the asset tracking procurement. It sounds like that, like from your presentation, that has been achieving the results that were intended and has improved the system's ability to just streamline operational aspects through that. So I'm glad to hear if that's indeed the case.
And we're moving forward because as you see with that with the asset tracking, and we need to go deeper in that, is the fact that as we're able to have a better inventory and be able to see our life cycle of our buildings, we're able to more inform our budgets as we move forward. Again, as Maureen said, that our CMP and our CMF&P, they work so much together to inform that CIP budget. So it's not a standalone document, they all work in concert. So with that asset tracking, we're able to put our piece together. So as we plan as a team, as a whole, we're able to make better decisions with the limited resources we have.
Wonderful. Well, thank you all for both presentations on the CMP as well as the CIP. If there's no other questions from commissioners on either of those, Commissioner Haynes-Messenger.
Hi. I'm going to try and frame this clearly, but it's a larger picture question. So if it needs something follow up later, that's fine.
Sure.
The reality is that we are likely going to see decreasing funds at state and federal level over the coming years. You've done a really thoughtful job in making, over the next almost decade of investing in where we are currently seeing growth in those sectors. The reality, though, is we go through the annual renewal process and annual review, that there's going to need to be consolidation and closing of schools in areas of our city that are not growing. in order to make sure that we are able to provide the dynamic education that kids and communities deserve.
Mhm.
What should the board be aware of, and what is your department doing to ensure that we have the resources that we need to support schools if and when we are planning to do school mergers and or school closures
Okay.
in our less densely populated areas of the city, given the fact that those are also largely small buildings that are some of our oldest inventory that have gone the longest without critical infrastructure investment.
Sure. And I see Ms. Richwork is coming. So Maureen, you want to take the first bite of that apple?
Absolutely, thanks. So we work closely, we're with the annual review team. A lot of the analysis that we put into the CEFMP, it's part of what we're referencing constantly as we meet throughout the year to discuss maybe some of the smaller programs that are being harder to fund and keep sustainable. And so that's our part from a facilities perspective, just making sure that we're sharing those, changing demographics so people are aware of the seat need, but then also just from a facility perspective, like, this building is from 1960. We haven't been able to fix the systems. And so when we talk about that kind of larger scene, not just the growing enrollment, but also the decreasing enrollment, those are factors that we're looking at. We're looking at the facility conditions index. We are looking at, again, kind of opportunities from a facility perspective on kind of like what strengths a certain site might have compared to others, overlaid obviously with all of the other factors that come in from other departments.
Correct. And I think I would just add to that, if I could, Commissioner Ains Messer, pretty much, I think for the most part, from a maintenance point of view, how we have to look at these things as well as this is where we really take a look at our in-house staff. Again, where's our contracted staff, because of if dollars are reducing or they're stagnant, trying to maximize our people in-house, leaning heavier into preventive maintenance. I know we made a real big push in that area, but leaning even heavier there, because if we can really lean in our preventive maintenance to help kind of stem off that service as much as possible. And of course, again, like we said before, optimizing the technology pieces we already have in place so that as we have to prioritize, we have the ability to be able to do that, in terms of our work order system, our life safety pieces and things like that. So it's concerning, as you said, but I think at the same time, those are kind of the things we're looking at now, looking at the forecast, what may be coming.
Okay. Yeah. Cool.
I just say, thinking of, we are going into a period of transition as a district. We are in periods of transition at every level of government. Looking at what are the things that the board need to keep in mind, realizing that we have had the great blessing of investment in infrastructure over the last 10 years and going into the next couple of years. What do we need to bear in mind, realizing that there will need, what recommendations do you have for us in terms of how to plan into this next season to make sure that schools where there might need to be changes and communities have the resources they need to be in strong buildings that are going to be able to meet changing needs?
Thank you. I'm defer to Dr. Washington for that one there.
All right. Sorry. So
Turn your speaker.
sorry, we're in the same room.
One of y'all just will have to additionally mute internal
Yeah,
speakers.
so we have it. Thank you, Tasha. So one of the things I will say is that if we go back to what Scott said from a maintenance perspective, there was a significant amount of investment over the last 10 years in order to support the maintenance team. And what we did was, with every amount of resources that were given, we strategically put resources in the most critical areas, around the most critical positions, and the most critical areas in terms of system supports. And so if we're having a conversation about that, there's a possibility that our portfolio might have to shrink, then you won't see that there is a significant need for additional investments to shrink the footprints of buildings because the infrastructure is there. The investment is already there in the building automation systems, in the staffing and the structure. Then the infrastructure is there. If we're having a conversation about what happens if we're merging programs and we're still merging them in older buildings, right? Because on the front end of the 21st Century Program, we were merging schools and building new buildings or making additions to buildings. And I will say that in that area, that is one of the reasons why we also lean into the support for our partners, who, you know, the folks who are supporting with building the library spaces, or the folks that are supporting with the science lab, some of those different things like that. We tend to lean in, and that work is sitting under our chief of staff. We lean in with the partners to say, how can we support the buildings so that we're improving the buildings and students are leaving from one building that is problematic and coming into another building. But it also allows us to consolidate our resources too, because then we're not spending those dollars on another facility that may be underutilized.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Yeah. In the interest of time and knowing we still have quite a few items on the agenda, although we don't have any public comment, I'm conscious that we're probably going to be pushing up to the end, if not over. Let's move on to the.
Andrew, sorry. I know that this is a cross-disciplinary effort, and I want to say thank you that you have worked to be thoughtful in how resources are used, with not in the next decade, but over the next 2 or 3. And just that is, I know that work lives in many offices, and I personally am deeply grateful for the work that does for our district. So I would say, in the end of asking hard questions, also to extend gratitude for the strategy that you all have used to get us where we are.
Yeah, echoing that. Chief Doherty, I believe, are you speaking to this, or is someone on your team to the board budget amendment?
Yes, good morning. Chris, if you want to add your comments, and then I'll pull up the files and go from there.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Coy. It will be Mary Ann Cox who's presenting it. The fourth quarter is a very atypical quarter. It's the quarter where you, because of closing out the year and making all the various things balance correctly, it's really unlike the others. There's a lot more activities. It's blocking and tackling to get satisfy COMAR, of course, and to also make sure that categories balance. And with the details, Mary Ann Cox will take it from there. It's all part of our year-end closeout, which commissioners and others know is mandated to be done by 9:30 every year. Just once again, we'll say it's very short. The cities and the counties, for example, have 6 months from June 30th until New Year's Eve. There's sometimes talk in Annapolis about harmonizing that so that the big districts in particular don't have only half the time that their host county and city do. And in certain instances, we're interacting with them for data. But in any case, we'll get it done. And this is all part of that. And thank you for the ability to say that quick intro. Mary Ann?
Okay, thank you, Chief Doherty. My name is Mary Ann Cox. I'm the Deputy Chief Financial Officer. I'm going to provide some documentation for the City Schools FY 2025 Quarter 4 Budget Amendment request, which, as Chief Doherty pointed out, this is all part of our year-end closing process. And in relation to the requirements for us to complete our audit, we require board approval of the FY 2025 Quarter 4 Budget Amendment request, as well as some of the component parts related in that, 3 of which are the supplemental appropriations, which should be a board approval request for tomorrow evening's public board meeting. Excuse me. What I'd like to do is share my screen and bring the budget amendment requests up. I'd like to point out that the FY25 Q4 budget amendment requests include 3 buckets of information. The first bucket would be the regular amount of Q4 budget amendment requests entered by the schools, through the principals or their appointed designees that just reflect the requests for the normal process that aligns most closely with our school fair student funding, that says the individuals closest to the students are the ones who know best how to reallocate the funds. That's the first bucket. The second bucket is the rebalancing journal entry, which is done by a member of the budget team, which basically allows us to rebalance our budgeting amounts so that we can demonstrate that city schools is in compliance with the COMAR requirement that we do not expend more in a given category than we have appropriated. So that's the rebalancing.
Sorry, Marianne,
Yes.
are you sharing your screen with the presentation?
Oh my goodness, yes, I thought it was up there. Are you not seeing it?
No, we aren't. I wanted to stop you before you got too far.
Thank you. Let me go back again.
If you need assistance, let us know.
Okay, let's try this. Can you see my screen now?
Yes,
For
we
the
see
budget
the,
amendment request?
we see the front page, the children hugging.
Yes, that's it.
Okay.
This is the PowerPoint presentation that we have that includes the FY 2025 Q4 budget amendment requests, which, as I said, contain those 3 buckets. The first bucket is the normal budget amendment request submitted by those closest to the students at the schools. The second one is the rebalancing budget amendment request, which is developed by our budget team, which includes the changes that we have to do, the reallocations that allow city schools, excuse me, to indicate compliance with the COMAR requirement that the LEAs not expend more in a given category than we have appropriated. And the third portion, and which was considered as the development of the rebalancing budget amendment was done, to include the impact of our 3 supplemental appropriations. So we'll do the budget amendment first. And I do want to note, as Chris already pointed out, this is all these Q4 budget amendment requests and the component parts are part of our normal year-end closing process. So wherein we rely on our revenue and expenditures and then compare them to budget, to ensure our compliance with COMAR. So looking at this, the budget amendment request, you can see that we define what a budget amendment request is, and we want to point out that during the Q4, our actual total budget increased by the amounts for 3 supplemental appropriations. The first one related to FEMA 4 and the Emergency Connectivity Fund receipts in the amount of $17.5 million. Our supplemental appropriation number 2 relates to investment income and recording what is a relatively high year for us. And I do want to caution, if anyone considers that we can just extrapolate that into the future, I will point out that it was just fiscal year 2020 when our investment income was a total of $28,000 for the year. So our investment income is not guaranteed. It aligns to generally what the T-bill rate is at a given point in time, and we know that the T-bill rate hit a historical high in FY 2024, and it's slowly coming down from there. And the indications we're seeing in the industry is that there will be another investment T-bill rate decrease in the next month or so, followed by another one before the calendar year is done this year. And then we have our third supplemental appropriation, which is other income, which we've got our again some one-time components in this. Our general fund, general other revenue receipts exceeded what we had budgeted by about 9.5 million, and we also had a prior year adjustment, some like a kind of like a true up amount we received from the state for something that we had accrued in FY 2024 that at the time we make the accrual, we base it on the best information we have at the time. But for this one particular revenue item, we received $3 million in addition to what we had accrued. So that all worked out. The signs were all with us in FY 2025 in terms of additional general fund revenue. So that's the $61.1 million we're talking about there for the three supplementals. So going through, we see that this is the net effect for categories for the three supplemental appropriations. Then we have category rebalancing, which you can see there's a lot of pluses and minuses. And what this relates to is, again, the need for city schools to demonstrate that we do not expend more in a given category than we have appropriated. So this brings everything back into balance. And I will say there are some contributing factors that occurred this year. And one is that our expenditures exceeded budget, relating to several considerations. A major contributor was the impacts of the union contracts that the board approved in December, which meant the payouts could not begin until January. And I will note that they're included in our financial statements in FY 2025, we had 2 years of retro payments, which are significant. And again, one-time payments that should not proceed going forward, but we had to take care of those increased costs through recognizing our additional revenue. We also had an increase in our legal accrual related to a Maryland state change in the statute of limitations related to claims that could be submitted by victims of child abuse. And the third one, we have some misalignment between what we had budgeted for vacancy savings and the amount of surplus employees related to what we had budgeted. So that all plays out in the category rebalancing and the supplemental appropriations. So we have some schedules here that show the pluses and minuses by category at the school level, at central office, and at the school level. And the users of our documentation can review them at their leisure, and we can provide support documentation for these changes later should the questions arise. So we take the same numbers for the quarter four changes, and you can see there at the summary level, that's the 61 million that we talked about, which we are recognizing an increasing revenue, which funds the 61 million in increased costs. So we do that same thing for the changes by object. Object versus category. Object is the name by which most people make sense of our increases or decrease. It's expenditures by salary and wages, benefits, contractual services, materials and supplies. Those kind of identifications and segments relate to payments by objects versus the MSDE category, where the MSDE finance manual dictates where we report something. So these are the major object amendments that were generated either by central office or by the schools. And you can see that there was a realignment of the non-public cash out. So salary and wages is decreased by 7 million, and contractual services and transfers offset that. So also major object amendments we can see here where there were, along with cooperation from finance, we provided funding from fringe benefits for the contractual services increase for operations. We did the same for the transportation overage. Now, for the supplemental appropriations, you can see that the bulk of the money went to salary and wages overall, and that tied back to my comments earlier relating to increased costs from the union contract. We also have some benefit impacts in that we pay FICA on any increases in salary and wages. So with these kind of numbers, that's a significant increase as well. So then we do the same thing. Again, at the object level, the total is $61.1 million. So we increased the budget for expenditures as we did for revenue. And again, the budget department developed these schedules, and now we break it out by central office and the schools. So those would be the schedules that we are submitting for board approval to allow us to complete that audit test request, and also so that city schools can show compliance that we do not spend more in a given MSDE category, which is the main reporting configuration that we have in our financial statements. So we can't spend more in a category than we have appropriated, and that's what this FY 2025 quarter 4 budget amendment does. Now, in addition to this document, we also have separate documentation for the 3 individual supplemental appropriations. So I can pop into them quickly, but they're already considered within the budget amendment request. So I'm
Mary
sorry.
Ann, no,
Yes.
this is Chris. I just wanted to, Commissioner Coy has mentioned a few times about a particularly packed agenda. Not that the board, not that the board needs our suggestion, but given that these are part and parcel of what has already been covered, I just raised for the board of whether, if you want us to walk through them, we're delighted to. If you think you get the gist of it and want to economize time, we don't see a problem with that.
Yeah, you're very much reading my mind. That was exactly going to be my suggestion, and ask of other board commissioners. Do you have any questions that haven't been answered, either going through the documents or otherwise?
I'm fine to move on.
Okay. Thank you both for.
I will have
thank you
some
all.
questions.
Oh,
Commissioner
go for
Coy,
it, Commissioner Mahmoud. Sorry, I can hear you now.
Sure. I'll keep it, try to keep it short. So there, really, I want to understand more, and I don't think I will get this now, but I'll start here. Just the details around the increases tied to the contract. So if we can have more details there so we can know exactly where those dollars live. There's a 15% increase in administration. And if those dollars live in that space, and central salaries seem to be significantly front loaded.
Yes.
So if you can give some insight into that.
Okay, certainly we will be happy to provide any kind of support documentation which would answer your question directly. But I do want to point out when we record expenditures in a given category, it's according to the MSDE Finance Manual. And according to that finance manual, it says that the expenditures for the Office of Legal Counsel are recorded in category 201. This year, we had a significant increase in the amount of money we set aside for the legal accrual based upon the request that we got from the Chief Legal Counsel. And again, the total there is about $9 million. And we were, it was confirmed to us that a lot of that increase, not all of it, but a lot of it related to the change in the statute of limitations for the timeline for the victims of child abuse to submit legal claims. So being good stewards, we have to account for that.
Oh, thank you, Mary. I didn't mean to talk over you. I would just say, Commissioner Muhammad, I just build on something that Mary Ann said, but it is a whopper of an impact. Yes. And that is when the board, the organization / the board came to agreement with our by far largest collective bargaining unit, we had an entire year of FY24 that was kind of held in abeyance. So when they got when we came to agreement with them on their approved contract, we hadn't given them any increase for FY24 or basically half of FY25. So when the things get approved, we go back to July 1st of the previous year and give all the retros in one fell swoop. And where that hit was in FY25, even though in a normal accounting matching principle, those are clearly FY24 costs, but they hit in FY25. So that's why there's that bump in FY25. Another thing that Mary Ann didn't mention because of probably time and other things is you may remember hearing about achievement units. As a group, we're doing away with achievement units. We're moving, but many thousands of teachers had built up achievement units over the years, and we cashed those out, right? So when we transitioned to the new system, we didn't just say tough luck for any achievement units you might have accrued, hardworking teacher, but we created a one-time bank for those. That also hit. So we do see that bump in FY25, thankfully, is due to the retros, the new pay structure. I mean, the increased pay structure for FY25 is a contributor to that, and the AUs, in addition to the externally driven change in law that made legal and we have to conservatively estimate what might be needed from a point of view of legal contingency and put that in there. All of that hits our FY25 numbers and makes it, gives it that bump. But thankfully, most of those things are one-time bumps and not forever. So excellent question, and that's what's led to it.
I appreciate that insight, and I'll say it raised concern because when I look across both schools and Central, I see a decrease in the fringe benefits. So trying to understand between the two, when I see a decrease in fringe benefits, first thing that may come to mind is how we're doing around retirement planning, and is this a sign of reduction in staff supports?
Okay, Chris, I can just offer a couple comments there. What I believe you're saying there is it's all budgetary. That's not actual. So that when you see a decrease, that means that I believe that's reflecting the budgetary assistance that finance gave to the ops department for those overages in there. And at the time we had some budget left in the fringe benefit, but it's not our starting point is the budgeted amount that we had in the general fund for fringe, not the actual expenditures. So we'd also have to look at what the actual expenditures were year to year to be able to answer your question about, no, this is not a decline in the fringe benefit available for our employees. It's a question of we're taking money from where we had placed that bucket. which was in fringe in category 212.
Okay, I appreciate the insight. Hopefully before this is produced to the whole board, if I can have something around the two, so it's not a question, particularly in the fringe benefit area, I see a decrease of about 11 million. That will be helpful in me reducing my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, and that I believe will have to go into actual versus budget. Yes, finance can put that together.
Okay, well, thank you all. And knowing that it's a written update later on in the agenda, but relates to finance and is at the connection between finance and so many other departments and whatnot, with the budget milestone calendar, I'll just make a comment here to say that this year you can anticipate, and I'll be providing some thoughts over email around the budget milestone calendar and what you all can anticipate from board member engagement this year that I think will be enhanced, will be additional. There will be more involvement earlier. This is certainly, as has been referenced earlier in the call, this is we are approaching a transition, and the board has an important role to play in bridging that transition. And so wanting to make sure that we are fully, completely, actively, and early engaged in the budget planning process. So thank you for providing the written update around the calendar, and we'll certainly come back with some additional thoughts and ways that we'd like to be involved. Moving on to the next item, 2.06, the waiver request. Are there any questions from commissioners on this item? For sake of time, I guess, is there any reason that we need to go through and read and present it? The only comment that I would add is, knowing that this is a one-time event, not a recurring annual event, I would love to see the Principal Pinckney, connected with other principals that do regular annual events to just ensure that things that they've learned over the years that make the event smoother. I imagine you might have already done this, but in the event that you haven't, please do just take that extra step to connect him with other principals who have done year over year recurring events. Would be much appreciated. But any requirements that we have to read any aspects of this here in this meeting? If there aren't any, then let's move on to the next items. We do have procurement items, but we also have some compliance reports. We don't often have a standard sort of presentation structure for the compliance reports. But I do think that these are both of significant, and actually the first one here around the financial, long-term financial planning does actually relate to questions that Commissioner Ames-Messenger was asking earlier and reflecting on. But for, I guess, is there a voiceover that somebody's prepared to give on this compliance report? If not, we can certainly go to questions that commissioners have as it relates to it.
Hi, Chair Coy, this is Tanisha. Yeah, for our compliance reports, it's questions only today. So we'll move right to the board.
Yeah, so any questions from fellow commissioners on the financial compliance report? I certainly do want this to be something that, to Commissioner Ames-Messenger points earlier, that we find some appropriate time, whether it's appropriate in exec session or public session, for the full board to be engaged in questions relating to some of these longer term. We are in a particular moment of uncertainty, and have a high degree of I personally have a high degree of confidence in the operations finance teams at city schools. So would actually just very much appreciate your insights as it relates to these things and how you're navigating the current uncertainties. I obviously know we've sort of used some of our reserve funds earlier this calendar year, last school year, when there were sudden uncertainties around federal funding. But for the sake of time today, we'll just note that we appreciate this report being filed, and we will make sure that we are providing this to our full board commissioners for a place for conversation there.
And Commissioner Coy, just to add that we have upcoming next month to this committee a FY27 preview, so there'll be another chance to dive in on what the road ahead looks like very soon.
Wonderful. Thank you for that additional note. As it relates to temporary employee compliance, questions from my fellow commissioners on this item? One of the things that I'll note, certainly as it relates to temporary employees, this is something that I know principals really rely on. You obviously all call out in the report around some ways that blueprint funding or other sorts of funding have interplayed with this. But I do think considering how this is so such an important part of the set of tools that a principal has access to, and that there is a wide range of ways in which principals, I think, do tap into this as an avenue to fill some of the needs and the supports. I certainly understand the balancing act then of it being temporary versus long-term, but just underscoring my observations around the principal's need and use of this as a tool. Any other comments or questions on that report? Commissioner Mohammed, I see you came off mute.
Sure, I'll just second the importance of this tool being for principals in particularly high poverty schools that they have needs that often they need to find creative ways to be able to staff and fill. So I just want to ensure that this is a concern of mine as a commissioner to ensure that all of our schools have what they need, whether those needs are met by short-term hiring or not, as long as our schools have what we need. So I say that this is something that we need to ensure we have fiscal controls around, and that there are oversights around gaps. However, we need to remain flexible to ensure our principals can staff their buildings to meet our young people's needs.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Commissioner Haynes Messenger.
Yeah, I do have a question, especially as this is coming to policy again for framing, I believe. Some of this is also looking at a lot of these schools. There's often a flow of folks from organizational partners, and that folks will come in through a partner, become familiar with the school, become a temporary worker, or vice versa, kind of based on constraints with procurement and board approval on that side. And I guess just wondering, is there any way, that's kind of anecdotally what I'm hearing, and Mohammed, definitely you tap in as others, is there a way to assess how many of these folks, like how they entered partnership with the district and also where they go afterwards? Because at some point, meeting the goal, it's not necessarily the goal. Well, there are advantages and pros and cons of having them be hired and assessed and evaluated and supported by the district. Also, kind of what role does community partners play as a way of being able to provide stability for folks being employed?
And for sake of time, if I could request that that's sent over an email to Commissioner Haynes Messenger, that would be wonderful. I've already said my comment around the written update around budget milestones. We have 3 procurement items, so it's a lighter procurement agenda, which is helpful for today given the other items. But if we could, I guess, read those as I imagine that is more needed than perhaps other things. But the short summaries, if we go through those, who is doing that today?
This is Peter Rutschkin.
Thank you.
So they're all for Chief Operating Officer. And the first one, board approval to increase the contract amount with Convergent Technologies to provide electric parts, supplies, and installation, as well as maintenance and repair of electronic systems. It's $1 million increase. And the contract term is April 24 through March 24 through March 31, 28. The second item is for Atlantida Builders window and door replacement at Moravia Park Upper Building 105B. Its Chief Operating Officer requests the board's approval of competitively solicited contract with it, Atlantida Builders in the total amount of almost $4.1 million. The contract provides window and door replacement services at Moravia Park Upper Building 105B. And then similarly, the third item, this is Janus Contractors, window and door replacement at Matthew A. Henson Elementary, number 0029. The Chief Operating Officer requests the board's approval of a competitively solicited contract with Janus in the total amount of $3.4 million for window and door replacement. And that's it.
Any questions on any of these items from my fellow commissioners? Okay. Well, thank you, Peter, for going through those items. We have no public comment today. So our next board meeting, Tanisha, if you can help me out real quick, as I'm also pulling up when our schedule for next operations committee meeting is, but it is likely 21st or what's the
October? It's yeah, sure, no problem. Our next operations committee meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, October 28th, which is the fourth Tuesday of the month. And for that meeting, we have the budget update for fiscal year 27, budget development, a transportation update, staffing and recruitment update, MWBE update, and we do have 2 compliance reports that will be before the board, which is DIC financial controls and DDA grant fiscal reporting.
Wonderful. And just noting that, well, thank you everyone for being on an off day or an unusual day, Monday morning for today. But yeah, we have shifted the operations committee meetings to be the 4th Tuesday now, given our switch in regular board meetings to the 1st and 3rd Tuesdays. So with that, unless there's any unreadiness from my fellow commissioners, we will conclude here a few minutes over, but appreciate everyone's time and all of the effort that went into this. This is end of call.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Everyone.